At my mother-in-law's anniversary party, my husband screamed across the entire ballroom, "Your appearance disgraces my family. Go wait in the car." He then ordered his security team to forcefully shove me into the sedan and lock the doors. In desperation, I pounded on the tinted glass, tears streaming down my face. But suddenly, the old driver turned around and said calmly, "Serena, please don't cry. Your father has finalized the paperwork. This car, the security detail, and the entire company are now yours. I'm awaiting your instructions. What should we do with your husband?" Hello. Please write in the comments where you're from. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Enjoy the listening. But to understand how a simple music teacher found herself facing such a choice, we need to go back just 1 hour. The Grand Ballroom of Atlanta's most exclusive venue, the St. Regis Grand, was filled with stifling opulence. Crystal glittered everywhere. Tables groaned under the weight of gourmet delicacies, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes, mixed with the fragrance of fresh lilies. It was the 65th birthday celebration for Patricia Thorne, Marcus's mother. The city's entire elite had gathered here to pay their respects to a woman who considered herself the local queen of charity. Serena Hawthorne stood near a column, trying to take up as little space as possible. She nervously smoothed the edge of her modest beige dress. She had sewn it herself, spending 3 nights straight at her sewing machine to save the family budget. Marcus always claimed the company was tight on cash and asked her not to spend money on new outfits. But now, looking at the wives of her husband's business partners, draped in designer gowns and dripping with diamonds, Serena felt pathetic and utterly out of place. She searched for her husband. Marcus Thorne, tall, polished, and in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, flitted from one group of guests to another. He laughed, shook the hands of important people, and beamed. For him, this evening was not just his mother's party. It was a showcase of his success. Marcus noticed Serena and frowned. He strode quickly toward her, painfully squeezing her elbow. "Why are you standing here like some poor relative?" he hissed into her ear, his strained smile still fixed for the guests walking by. "Get over to the main table. Mom's about to give her toast, and for God's sake, stop slouching. You're the CEO's wife, not a mouse from the cellar." Serena nodded, swallowing her offense. She was used to it. In 10 years of marriage, she had learned that the most important thing to Marcus was appearances. She dutifully headed toward the main table, where Patricia Thorne was already holding court. The birthday woman was in her element. In her deep burgundy velvet gown, she looked monumental. She accepted congratulations with the air of a monarch bestowing a favor. Serena took a glass of champagne from a waiter's tray just to give her trembling hands something to do. She wanted to approach and quietly wish her mother-in-law a happy birthday, as etiquette required. "Patricia," Serena began softly, taking a step forward. "Happy birthday." Her mother-in-law spun around abruptly. She did it with deliberate force, swinging her arms as if she hadn't noticed her daughter-in-law standing right next to her. Her heavy elbow slammed into Serena's arm. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers. The crash of broken glass silenced the hum of conversation. The music stopped instantly. The amber liquid spread across the polished hardwood floor. A few drops splashed onto the hem of Patricia Thorne's dress. A deathly silence fell over the room. All eyes, hundreds of them, focused on Serena. She froze, feeling the heat rise to her face. "Oh, for heaven's sake!" Patricia sighed loudly for the entire room to hear, delicately brushing off her dress, even though the spot was microscopically small. "Well, of course. What else could I expect?" Marcus was instantly at her side. His face was blotched red, not with shame, but with fury. He saw his partners exchanging glances and their wives curling their lips. His perfect image had cracked. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't offer his wife a napkin. Instead, he exploded. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus roared, making Serena's ears ring. "Are your hands made of stone? Did you intentionally try to ruin my mother's party?" "Marcus, she bumped me." Serena tried to defend herself, but her voice trembled. "Shut up!" he barked. "Stop making excuses. Look at you. You're a drab little mouse. All you know how to do is embarrass me. I dragged you out of the hood, and you can't even hold a champagne glass." He grabbed her arm roughly, like she was a criminal. Serena gasped in pain. Marcus dragged her away from the table, right through the center of the ballroom. "Marcus, you're hurting me. People are watching," she whispered, barely able to keep her feet moving without tripping. "Let them watch," he shouted, enjoying his power. "Let them see who I have to live with. Your appearance disgraces my family. Get out of here." He hauled her toward the massive exit doors. 2 security guards in black suits instantly rushed over. "Get this thing out of here," Marcus ordered the guards, shoving his wife's arm toward them. "Shove her into the car, let her sit there like a punished dog until I decide what to do with her, and lock the doors so she can't stick her nose out." The guards, accustomed to following orders without question, took Serena by the arms. She didn't resist. The shock had paralyzed her will. Marcus turned around and headed back into the ballroom, smoothing his jacket as he walked. Behind him, there was sparse but approving applause from the guests, supporting the strong man who had restored order. Serena was led outside. The evening air hit her face with a chill. A guard opened the back door of a black executive sedan and literally shoved her onto the leather seat. The door slammed shut, and the central lock clicked. She was alone in the semi-darkness of the luxurious interior. Serena pressed her face against the tinted glass. Through her tears, she could see the brightly lit windows of the ballroom. The party was still going on. Her husband, the man she had loved for 10 years, was probably smiling and drinking wine again, having erased her from his life in a single instant. Hysteria crashed over her in a wave. Serena began to pound her fists on the soft door panel, then on the window. "Let me out!" she screamed, even though she knew no one outside could hear her because of the soundproofing. "I want to go home. Marcus!" she sobbed, smearing her mascara across her cheeks. The sense of humiliation was so complete that she just wanted to disappear, to dissolve. Life felt over. How could she look people in the eye tomorrow? How could she return to that house? Suddenly, she noticed she wasn't alone in the car. In the driver's seat sat Mr. James, the older driver who had worked for the Thorne family even before Marcus became a high-powered executive. He had always been silent, invisible as a shadow. Marcus often insulted him, calling him an old relic, but didn't fire him because Mr. James knew the city better than any GPS. Mr. James slowly turned off the engine. An absolute silence descended on the cabin, broken only by Serena's stifled sobs. The driver looked up and met her eyes in the rearview mirror. His gaze held no trace of his usual subservience or pity. There was something else there, something hard and resolute. "Serena," he said. His voice was unexpectedly firm. "Stop. Tears won't help, and they'll only hurt your cause." Serena froze, surprised by his tone. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "Mr. James, please open the door. I'll just take a bus." "No bus," the driver cut her off. "We're not going anywhere until you know the truth." He turned his body toward her, holding a tablet. "Marcus Thorne thinks your father is a drunk failure who lives off the grid and keeps out of sight," Mr. James continued calmly. "That was the plan. Your father, Fletcher Beloit, wanted to test what kind of man your husband really was. The test dragged on for 10 years, and today it's over." Serena stared at him, not understanding a single word. What was he talking about? Her dad really did live simply. She used to send him part of her meager paycheck, hiding it from Marcus. "This morning, your father activated the blind trust transfer protocol," Mr. James said, handing her the tablet over the back of the seat. "Look at the screen." Serena took the device with trembling hands. A document from the Secretary of State's corporate registry was open on the screen. The lines danced before her eyes, but Mr. James tapped a finger on the relevant field. "Read it." "Owner of Thorne Group of Companies, Serena B. Hawthorne." Serena read it. Marcus's name wasn't there. It read, Hawthorne Serena B. "But how?" she whispered. "Marcus is the CEO. He's the owner." Marcus Thorne was never the owner, the driver interrupted her, a faint smirk playing on his lips. He was a hired manager. His contract was for exactly 10 years. The contract expired yesterday at midnight. Mr. James looked directly into her eyes, and now Serena saw a strength in the older man she had never noticed before. As of this minute, Marcus Thorne is nobody, unemployed, and you are his employer. You are the sole owner of this entire business, this car, and these security guards standing outside. Serena shifted her gaze from the tablet to the ballroom windows, where Marcus was celebrating his imagined power. Your father waited until Marcus showed his true colors, Mr. James added. He showed them. Now, it's your move. Serena still gripped the tablet as if it were a life raft in a stormy sea. The letters on the screen didn't change. Owner Hawthorne, SB. The meaning of those words reached her slowly, breaking through the fog of shock and resentment. She looked up at the driver. Mr. James didn't look away, and in his eyes, she saw expectation. I don't understand, she started, but her voice broke. Why did Dad stay silent? Why did he let Marcus treat me like that all these years? So you could see who you were with, Mr. James answered curtly, and so Marcus Thorne would lower his guard. He became complacent. But this is no time for philosophy, Serena. We have little time. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a sheet of paper folded into quarters. Marcus didn't just kick you out of the party. He planned to destroy you tomorrow morning. Serena took the paper. It was a copy of a petition for divorce. The date was set for tomorrow. At the bottom, under asset claims, it stated that the spouse claimed nothing, as she had no income or contribution to the marital estate. He was going to serve you this tomorrow at breakfast, the driver continued, enunciating every word. He would have tossed you out on the street with one suitcase the moment his contract expired. He already prepared the security to keep you out of the apartment. You were just a spent resource to him. Something inside Serena snapped. The self-pity that had choked her moments ago suddenly evaporated. In its place came a coldness. An icy, searing cold. For 10 years she had darned his socks, cooked his diet soups, endured his mother's sneers, and scrimped on herself so he could look respectable. She loved him, and he was just waiting for the contract to end. She straightened her spine. The tears dried up on their own. Mr. James? Serena's voice had changed. It held a metallic edge she didn't know she possessed. Open the car. The driver nodded, pleased by the change. He pressed the unlock button, then handed her a thick envelope from the glove compartment. Take this. Your father asked me to give it to you. It's cash from the reserve fund. I think you'll find a use for it right now. Serena took the envelope, feeling its satisfying weight, and pushed the door open. The night air no longer felt cold. She stepped out of the car and smoothed down her modest dress. Now, it didn't seem poor. It was the dress of an owner who didn't need tinsel to know her worth. The security guards at the entrance, the very ones who had thrown her out 5 minutes earlier, exchanged glances. One stepped forward to block her path. Miss Hawthorne, we were instructed not to let you in. Mr. James, who had silently appeared behind her, simply cleared his throat. The guard looked at the old driver, saw a barely perceptible nod and a strange hand gesture. The security personnel froze, then silently stepped aside, opening the heavy oak door. Serena walked into the ballroom. Live music was playing, glasses clinked, and laughter rang out. Marcus was standing in the center of a circle of guests, telling some joke. Patricia Thorne sat on her throne-like chair, nodding graciously. Serena walked directly toward them. The click of her heels was lost in the noise of the party, but her presence didn't go unnoticed. First, those closest to the entrance fell silent. Then the silence spread in a wave until it covered the whole room. The musicians, sensing trouble, stopped playing. Marcus turned around. Seeing his wife, his face flushed purple, his eyes narrowed with rage. He excused himself from his conversational partners and strode toward her, clenching his fists. "Have you completely lost your mind?" he hissed, stepping close. I told you to sit in the car. Are you trying to stage a scene in front of everyone? Security! He looked around, searching for his team. 2 muscular men did enter the room, but they didn't rush to grab Serena. They stood by the wall, arms crossed, and looked at Marcus with stony faces. Serena did not stop. She walked right past her husband, as if he were an empty space, and ascended the small stage where the microphone stand for toast stood. "Get her out of there!" Marcus roared, losing all composure. "Mom, tell her!" Patricia Thorne half rose, opening her mouth to spew another insult, but Serena had already taken the microphone. "Good evening again." Her voice, amplified by the speakers, echoed through the ballroom, bouncing off the crystal chandeliers. "I apologize for interrupting the festivities." The room held its breath. Guests, used to scandals in the society pages, eagerly awaited the climax. "I am obliged to make an important announcement." Serena spoke calmly, looking directly at her husband, who was frozen in the middle of the room. "I, Serena B. Hawthorne, am the sole owner and founder of the Thorne Group of Companies." A whisper ran through the ballroom. Someone chuckled, assuming it was a drunken joke. Marcus laughed nervously, spreading his hands in an exaggerated gesture. "Folks, I apologize," he said. "My wife, she's not well. Overwork, a nervous breakdown. Serena, get off the stage. Don't embarrass yourself." "Due to the identified misappropriation of corporate funds," Serena continued, not even glancing at him, "I am making the decision to immediately terminate this banquet. This event was illegally paid for from the company's accounts. Funding is stopped. I ask everyone to please leave the premises." Marcus went white. He lunged toward the stage to rip the microphone from her hand. "You're delusional. What owner? You're a nobody. Security. Throw her out or I'll fire all of you." At that moment, Mr. James, standing by the entrance, nodded to the head of security. The 2 hulking guards, instead of grabbing Serena, stepped forward to intercept Marcus, blocking his path to the stage. "Mr. Thorne, please step away," one of them said gruffly. "It's the owner's command." Marcus froze, switching his frantic gaze between the guards and Serena. The guests began whispering louder. The atmosphere of scandal thickened. "This is a prank!" Patricia shrieked. "Marcus, what's going on? Do something!" Marcus tried to salvage the last scraps of his authority. He turned to the room, forcing a crooked smile. "Friends, pay no attention. This is just a family dispute. We'll sort everything out now. Waiters, champagne for everyone, music." But the orchestra didn't play. The waiters, standing along the walls with their trays, didn't move. Their faces were grim. Serena raised the microphone to her lips again. "There will be no champagne," she said, "and no music, because Marcus Thorne forgot to mention one small detail. He's bankrupt." She reached into the envelope Mr. James had given her. "I found out that the catering service and restaurant staff haven't been paid in 3 months, Serena announced loudly. "Marcus has been feeding you promises while hosting parties with the company's last dollars." Marcus flinched, as if he'd been slapped. This was a low blow. In this social circle, infidelity might be forgiven, but financial insolvency was a death sentence. "That's a lie," he squeaked. Serena walked to the edge of the stage, where the head waiter, an older man with a tired face, stood. "Here is the 3 months' debt and a bonus for tonight's work," she said, so everyone could hear, and handed him the thick wad of bills. "Distribute this to the staff right now." The head waiter, staring dumbfounded at the money, took the stack. He quickly counted the top bills and nodded to his colleagues. A profound silence fell over the room, broken only by the rustle of cash as the waiters began dividing the money among themselves right next to the lavishly set tables. This was more concrete proof than any document. The guests, the city's elite, began to visibly distance themselves from Marcus with expressions of distaste. A man who stiffed the help while throwing lavish parties was social poison in their circle. Marcus stood alone in the center of the room, red-faced, sweating, and utterly destroyed. He looked at the wife he had considered worthless for 10 years, and for the first time he saw someone to be feared. "And now," Serena said, lowering the microphone, "the banquet is over." The guests left in silence, trying not to look either Marcus or Patricia in the eye. It wasn't just the end of the evening, it was a social execution. The next morning, Marcus woke up in a motel. He was afraid to go home, unsure of what else his quiet wife might pull. His head was pounding, but rage fueled him. He was sure this was some monstrous mistake, a glitch in the registry, a stupid joke by his senile father-in-law. He would fix everything. He always did. By 8 o'clock in the morning, he was at the glass doors of the Thorne Group office tower. With his usual proprietary gesture, he flashed his magnetic keycard at the turnstile. The turnstile beeped a warning red signal and didn't open. Marcus frowned and tried the card again, denied again. "What the hell?" he roared. "Lena, open up! Your system is down!" Lena, the young administrator, who usually blushed at the sight of the boss and rushed to pour his coffee, sat behind the reception desk. Today, she wasn't blushing. She was pale and shrinking in her chair. "Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry," she stammered, avoiding his gaze. "Your pass has been deactivated." "Deactivated by whom? I'm the CEO. Open it immediately." "I can't." Lena, with a trembling hand, pointed to a display board with official notices hanging in the lobby. "The directive is posted." Marcus rushed to the board. A fresh sheet of paper with an official seal proclaimed, "Directive number 1, regarding the removal from office of CEO Marcus Thorne due to loss of trust and expiration of contract term, to appoint acting officer." At the bottom was a large, sweeping signature, S.B. Hawthorne. Marcus tore the sheet from the wall, crumpled it, and threw it on the floor. "This is a forgery!" he screamed so loudly that the security guard at the entrance put his hand on his baton. "I'm calling the police right now. You'll all be out of a job." He spun around and burst out of the building, nearly taking out the revolving door. A plan formed in his head instantly. He had to go home. The original corporate documents were in the safe there. He would force Serena to sign a retraction. He would choke her if necessary, but he would make her sign everything back over. 20 minutes later, his car screeched to a halt at the gates of their suburban estate. Marcus jumped out without even closing the car door and ran to the pedestrian gate. He punched in the code. The lock didn't react. He pushed the buzzer. Silence. "Serena! Open up!" he yelled, yanking the handle. "I know you're in there! Open up!" He started kicking the metal gate. A neighbor, a retired colonel who was watering his lawn, walked over to the fence. "Marcus, what's all the noise?" the neighbor asked sternly. "Serena is home, but she asked not to be disturbed." "This is my house!" Marcus shrieked. "She changed the locks!" He lunged at the fence, trying to climb over, but his foot slipped. Then he grabbed a stone from the ground and threw it at a first-floor window. The glass twanged mournfully and spider-webbed with cracks, but it didn't shatter. The double-pane window was strong. "I'm calling the police for vandalism, you hooligan," the colonel snapped. "Go ahead, call them," Marcus screamed, kicking the gate repeatedly. "Let them come and throw out this imposter." Inside the house, standing at a second-floor window, Serena watched the whole thing. Her heart hammered somewhere in her throat. Seeing her husband so pitiful, so frantic, so dehumanized, was frightening. Yesterday, she would have rushed to open the door, apologize, and calm him down. The habit of being an obedient wife ran deep. Maybe I should talk to him?" she asked uncertainly, not turning around. "He is still my husband." Mr. James, who was sitting at the kitchen table calmly drinking tea, shook his head. "No, Serena. Pity is a poor advisor, especially now." He stood up, walked over to her, and placed a small cardboard box on the windowsill. "I retrieved this from his office safe this morning while he was sleeping at the motel. The guards let me in. They're your guards now." Serena looked at the box. Inside were folders of documents. "What is this?" The answer to the question, why? "You still think he loved you, even in the beginning, don't you?" Serena was silent. Yes, somewhere deep down, she still hoped their meeting 10 years ago wasn't a coincidence. He had been so charming, so attentive. A prince who fell for Cinderella. She opened the top folder. The first things she saw were photographs, old black and white and color snapshots of her childhood home in the country, pictures of her father working in the garden, photos of Serena herself, walking home from music school. The photos were taken with a hidden camera and were all dated. The earliest date was 6 months before she met Marcus. "He was watching us," Serena whispered, feeling her fingers go cold. "Not just watching," Mr. James explained. "He was studying the subject." Beneath the photos was a contract, thick paper, gold embossing, an investment agreement. Serena started reading, and the letters swam before her eyes. The document stated in black and white that Fletcher Beloit, her father, was transferring the seed capital and management of the company to Marcus Thorne on the condition that he marry his daughter, Serena B. Hawthorne. But the most chilling part was Section 4.2. Full transfer of company ownership rights to Marcus Thorne will occur only upon the expiration of 10 years of continuous marriage. In the event of divorce before the expiration of this term, initiated by Marcus Thorne, he forfeits all rights to management and assets and must pay a penalty. Serena read the sentence 3 times. Yesterday, the day of her mother-in-law's anniversary, was exactly 10 years from the day of their wedding. "He waited," Serena said, her voice trembling, but without tears. There was only a feeling of emptiness, as if all her internal organs had been removed. "He tolerated me for 10 years because of this clause." "Precisely," Mr. James nodded. "Every bouquet of flowers, every kiss, every birthday, it was a job. He was fulfilling a contract. He resented you for being forced to live with a country girl to get the money. And yesterday, when the term expired, he thought he was free. He thought the company was his, and he didn't need you anymore." Serena turned the page. It contained correspondence between Marcus and his lawyer, dated the previous week. "As soon as midnight strikes on the 15th, prepare the divorce papers. I want to throw her out on the morning of the 16th. Make sure she doesn't get a dime. I've already wasted 10 years of my life on that gray moth." From the street came the wail of a police siren. Marcus at the gate fell silent. Serena closed the folder. Her hands no longer trembled. All the pity that had stirred within her moments before was dead. It was killed by those dry lines of a contract. 10 years of her life had not been a marriage, but a business project, in which she was merely an encumbrance on the assets. She looked out the window. Police officers were twisting Marcus's arms, pressing him against the patrol car's hood. He writhed and screamed that he was the master of his life. "Mr. James," Serena said, not taking her eyes off the scene, "call the police. Tell them we won't file a complaint for vandalism." The driver raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You want to forgive him?" "No." Serena turned to him, her face calm, like a mask. "If he gets 15 days for vandalism, he gets off too easy. Let him walk. Let him see everything he thought was his crumble. I want him free when I take the rest of it from him." She picked up the next folder from the box. It was labeled, "Patricia Thorne's Condo." "Now, let's deal with his mother." No sooner had Serena opened the folder than the front door downstairs rattled with a bang. Someone was aggressively turning a key in the lock. "I know you're in there, you piece of trash!" Patricia's shrill voice echoed in the hall. "You changed the locks on the gate, but you forgot about my spare house key." Serena slowly closed the folder. She had forgotten her mother-in-law had her own keys. Marcus had given them to her just in case, so his mother could come for inspections at any time. These visits usually ended in a scene over dust on the shelves or incorrect seasoning in the soup. Heavy footsteps clattered up the stairs. The living room door flew open, and Patricia Thorne stood on the threshold. She was still in the burgundy dress from the anniversary, wrinkled and stale. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared, but her eyes shot lightning. "You!" she gasped, rushing toward Serena. "You destroyed my son! You disgraced us across the whole city!" Her mother-in-law raised her hand. Her hand, with a massive ring, flew directly at Serena's face. Before, Serena would have flinched. Before, she would have closed her eyes and taken the blow, just as she had taken all the insults for 10 years. But that was the Serena who was locked in the car yesterday. Serena caught her mother-in-law's hand in midair, firmly, sharply. Patricia gasped in surprise and tried to pull away, but her daughter-in-law's grip was like steel. "Don't you dare," Serena said quietly, but distinctly. "Never dare to raise a hand to me again." She pushed her mother-in-law's hand away. Patricia staggered, grabbing the back of a chair for support. "You! How dare you talk to me like that?" She choked with indignation. "I'm the queen of this city. I'll crush you to powder. Marcus will fix everything, and you'll crawl at our feet." Serena calmly walked to the table and picked up the folder she had just been looking at. "Marcus won't fix anything, Patricia, and you're not the owner of the city or even your own condo." "What nonsense are you spouting?" her mother-in-law scoffed, adjusting her hair with trembling hands. "My condo in the luxury tower, it's my fortress. It's deeded to me." "Was deeded to you," Serena corrected. "Right up until your son decided to play big-time businessman." She pulled a bank-stamped document from the folder and placed it on the table in front of her mother-in-law. "Read this, mortgage agreement." Patricia curled her lip contemptuously, but looked at the paper anyway. "What is this? Marcus said it was just a formality for business expansion." "It's a lien," Serena explained mercilessly. "Marcus took out a massive loan against your fortress, a high-risk credit to cover his embezzlements before the audit he feared. He was sure he'd get full control of my company in a week and pay off the debt with my money, but he miscalculated." Serena paused, letting the information sink in. "The payment deadline passed a week ago. Marcus defaulted. According to the contract terms, the bank has the right to seize the collateral." "No," Patricia whispered, turning pale. "That's impossible. He couldn't have." "He could, and he did," Serena smiled coldly. "And since the controlling interest in the bank that issued the loan belongs to my father's holding company, in fact, I decide on the eviction." She produced another sheet, an eviction notice. "This apartment is now listed as company housing on the company's balance sheet. You are not an employee. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises." Patricia snatched the paper. Her hands shook so violently that the sheet tore. "You wouldn't dare!" she shrieked. "I'm a mother! I'm an elderly woman! Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," Serena cut her off. "You spent 10 years telling me I was a nobody who lived off your charity. Now it's your turn to find out what that feels like." Her mother-in-law collapsed into the chair. All her arrogance, all her false aristocracy, peeled away like cheap veneer. Sitting before Serena was just a frightened, wicked old woman. 24 hours, Serena repeated, time's ticking. Patricia looked up at her, eyes full of tears. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were filled with panic and animalistic malice. "This is all your fault," she suddenly yelled, striking the armrest with her fist. "If you had died sooner, none of this would have happened. Marcus would have gotten the money and we'd be living like kings." "You knew about the contract?" Serena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Of course I knew," Patricia laughed hysterically. "I told him to take that loan. I told him, 'Marcus, take the money. That village idiot won't go anywhere. In a week, all her inheritance will be ours, and we'll buy the condo back. I thought we had outsmarted you." She jumped up, her face distorted. "You think your pathetic father didn't think about you? You think he abandoned you? Ha!" Serena tensed. "What are you talking about?" "The letters," Patricia spat out. "He wrote to you every month. 'My dear Serena, my daughter, how are you?' Ugh, sickening sentimentality. I intercepted them from the mailbox before you even woke up." Serena felt the earth shift beneath her feet. Her father had been writing to her all those years. She thought he had forgotten her, was angry because she had left for the city. "And you know what I did next?" Patricia was reveling in her confession, as if it were her last weapon. "I wrote him back, in my handwriting, which looks just like yours. 'Dad, don't write to me. I'm ashamed of your poverty. Send money or forget my name.'" A deafening silence hung in the room. Serena looked at the woman sitting before her, and couldn't believe a person could be so utterly rotten. For 10 years she had cried into her pillow, thinking her father had stopped loving her. For 10 years she had felt like an orphan with a living parent, and this woman had simply stolen her mail and killed her relationship with her father, all for money. You are a monster," Serena whispered. "I'm a mother who wanted the best for her son," Patricia snapped back, "and you were just an obstacle." Mr. James, who had been standing in the shadows all this time, stepped forward. His face was crimson with suppressed rage. "Serena," he said gruffly, "allow me to throw her out right now. No need to wait 24 hours. Serena looked at her mother-in-law, who flinched, seeing the driver. "No," Serena said. Her voice grew stronger. "Let her pack her things, every rag, every trinket. Let her feel every minute of her downfall. But the letters—" She walked right up to Patricia. "Where are the letters? Did you destroy them?" Patricia grinned maliciously. "No, I kept them in a shoebox on the top shelf, like trophies of my victory over you." "Get out," Serena said softly. "Go to your condo. Pack your things. And if I don't find that box when I come to inspect the condo tomorrow, I will file a lawsuit against you for mail fraud and forgery. And then you'll lose not only your home, but your freedom as well." Patricia Thorne went completely white. She realized she had gone too far. She grabbed her handbag and without another word scrambled out of the room. A second later, the front door slammed shut. Serena sank onto the sofa. She didn't have the strength to stand. "Dad wrote to me," she repeated, staring into the distance. "All this time." Mr. James placed a hand on her shoulder. A heavy, warm palm. "He did, Serena," and he waited patiently. He knew the letters weren't getting through. He suspected they were being intercepted, but he kept writing so that when everything came out, you would have proof of his love. Serena buried her face in her hands. Now she cried, but these were different tears, not of resentment, but of relief. She wasn't alone. She had never been alone. "Let's go," she suddenly said, standing up abruptly and wiping her eyes. "Let's go to the office. I need to see the accounting records. I want to know what else that family man spent my money on while his mother was stealing my letters." While Serena was driving to the office, Marcus was already knocking on the door of an apartment in a new development on the outskirts of the city. Chloe, his former secretary, a tall blonde with a visibly rounded belly, opened the door. "Marcus!" she exclaimed, surprised to see him with a travel bag. "Why are you so early? You said you were kicking the gray mouse out today." Marcus squeezed inside without taking off his shoes. "Plans changed, kitten," he lied, tossing the bag in the hallway. "We ran into some legal complications. That crazy woman forged the documents. I need to crash here for a couple of days while my lawyers sort this out." Chloe frowned. She knew about Marcus's plan and had been waiting for this day like a holiday. "What complications? You promised we'd move into the mansion." "We will move," Marcus barked, but immediately softened his tone. "Of course we will. It just takes time. I'll declare her legally incompetent. You know she's unstable. The judge will side with me. The money isn't going anywhere. It's mine." Chloe pursed her lips, but nodded. She wanted to believe him. After all, she was carrying his child, the heir to the empire, as Marcus liked to say. "Fine," she said, "but I need money for the ultrasound and vitamins." "Tomorrow." Marcus dismissed her, falling onto the sofa. "Everything tomorrow." But tomorrow came sooner for Chloe. She wasn't stupid and had seen the city news outlets. Rumors of the scandal at the anniversary party were already swirling. The fear of being left with nothing pushed her to a desperate act. She decided that if Marcus couldn't put his wife in her place, she would. An hour later, Chloe burst into the community center where Serena, despite the tumultuous events of the past 24 hours, was conducting a rehearsal for the children's choir. The hall was full of children and their parents. Serena was standing by the piano, trying to concentrate on the sheet music, when the doors flew open with a bang. "There she is!" Chloe screamed, pointing at the stage. "The thief!" The music stopped. The children went silent with fright. Parents jumped to their feet. Chloe, breathing heavily, marched down the aisle. Her pregnancy was obvious. "Look at this saint!" she yelled, addressing the hall. "She pretends to be Teacher of the Year, but she stole from her own husband. She kicked him out on the street and took everything." Serena slowly lowered her hands. She recognized the young woman. She had seen her photo on Marcus's phone when he accidentally left it unlocked. But at the time, she had convinced herself it was just a colleague. "Ma'am, please leave. There are children here," Serena said calmly, though she was shaking inside. "I won't leave," Chloe screamed. "You stole my baby's future. You barren nothing. You're jealous of me because I could give Marcus what you couldn't in 10 years. A murmur went through the hall. The blow was accurate and cruel. Everyone knew how Serena dreamed of having children, how she sought treatment, and how she cried after every negative test. "You're a thief," Chloe continued, walking right up to the stage. "Give Marcus his money back. It's his company." "Security!" Serena called out loudly. 2 community center security guards, who were normally napping at the front desk, rushed over to Chloe and carefully took her by the arms. "Get your hands off me! I'm pregnant with the owner of the Thorne Group's baby!" she screamed as they dragged her toward the exit. When the doors closed behind her, a heavy silence hung in the hall. Parents looked at Serena, some with pity, others with judgment. "Rehearsal is over," Serena said quietly. "I apologize. You are all free to go." She quickly gathered her sheet music and practically fled through the staff exit, where Mr. James was already waiting. "To the office," she instructed, getting into the car. "Immediately." In the CEO's office, the one Marcus had occupied just yesterday, Serena sat down at the computer. She needed a distraction. She needed to find something that would explain this chaos. Chloe's words, "barren nothing," were ringing in her ears. She opened the accounting database. Mr. James stood beside her, a silent source of support. "Show me his personal expenses that he charged to the company," Serena requested. She scrolled through the list of transactions: restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores, all predictable. But one line caught her attention: a monthly payment of $8,500. $8,500. Recipient: the Beaumont Center for Reproductive Health. Purpose of payment: consulting services. "Beaumont," Serena murmured. "I went there for treatment. It's a fertility clinic." She frowned. Marcus had always said the treatment was too expensive, that they couldn't afford extra procedures, but according to the statement, he had been paying the clinic regularly. "Mr. James, let's go to Beaumont," she said, printing the statement. The clinic was quiet and sterile. Serena burst into the office of the chief physician, Dr. Markova, the very man who had managed her care all these years. Dr. Markova, a gray-haired man in glasses, flinched when he saw her. "Serena, you don't have an appointment." Serena slapped the bank transfer statement onto his desk. "Explain this to me, doctor. Marcus Thorne has been paying you personally every month for 5 years. What for?" "My treatment was paid for separately at the cashier." Dr. Markova went pale. He took off his glasses and began wiping them with a cloth. That is confidential information," he mumbled. "I am the owner of the company whose accounts this money came from," Serena said sharply, "and I am your patient. Either you tell me the truth now, or in an hour the district attorney's office will be here auditing your license." The doctor sighed heavily. He realized denial was useless. Marcus had lost his power, which meant there was no point in covering for him anymore. "Marcus Thorne was paying me to adjust your therapy," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" Serena felt her hands grow cold. Dr. Markova looked down. "You are healthy, Serena, absolutely healthy. You never had any problems conceiving." Serena froze. The world tilted. "But you told me the tests, the pills?" "The tests were normal," the doctor confessed. "Marcus Thorne asked, no, he demanded, that I give you false diagnoses. The pills you took for 5 years, supposedly to stimulate ovulation, were strong hormonal contraceptives." Serena gripped the edge of the desk to keep from falling. "Contraceptives?" she whispered. "I was taking birth control, thinking I was treating infertility?" "Yes." Marcus Thorne said that a child was not part of his business plan right now, and that a divorce would be harder to finalize if there was an heir. He paid me to ensure you wouldn't get pregnant, but would continue to believe you were trying. A terrible silence descended on the office. Serena remembered all her tears, all her prayers, all the humiliating procedures she had endured. She remembered how Marcus would comfort her, saying, "Well, maybe it's just not meant to be." He didn't just not love her, he stole her right to be a mother. He poisoned her with pills to keep her convenient for his contract. Serena slowly raised her eyes to the doctor. There were no tears in them anymore, only a black void. "You are a monster too, doctor," she said in a voice that sent shivers down Markova's spine. "You took the Hippocratic oath and sold it for $50,000 a month." She turned and walked out of the office. Mr. James was waiting in the hallway. He had heard everything through the slightly ajar door. His fists were clenched so hard, his knuckles were white. "Serena," he began. "Don't," she interrupted him. "No words. Let's go." "Where?" "Home." "No." Serena stopped in the middle of the corridor. Her face was hardened. "We're going to block his accounts and take everything he has left. He wanted me to be childless. Fine. I will ensure he is naked." She pulled out her phone and dialed the bank. "Hello, this is Serena Hawthorne. Block all corporate cards issued in the name of Marcus Thorne and annul the lease agreement on his SUV right now. Let him walk." Serena hung up, the gesture feeling like pulling a trigger. The pain of her husband's and doctor's betrayal twisted inside her into a tight, hot knot. But now that energy wasn't destroying her, it demanded release. At the same time, at a gas station on the edge of the city, Marcus was inserting the fuel nozzle into the tank of his luxury SUV. He felt like a winner. Chloe was waiting for him at home. The plan to have Serena declared incompetent seemed brilliant. He took out his platinum corporate card and swiped it at the terminal. The terminal beeped and displayed a red message. "Declined. Card blocked." Marcus frowned. "Your machine's glitching," he grumbled to the attendant and pulled out his second card, a gold one. Beep. "Declined. Contact bank." Marcus started to panic. He tried a third card, his personal one, linked to the same salary account. Same result. "Sir, are you going to pay?" the cashier asked impatiently over the intercom. "You're holding up the line." "I'm coming," Marcus snapped. He reached into his pocket for cash, but remembered he had given his last big bills to Chloe for a cab. $200 bills lay forlornly in his wallet. Not enough for even 5 gallons. Suddenly, his car's engine stalled on its own, even though the key was in the ignition. A message flashed on the dashboard. "Remote engine lockout. Contact leasing company." "What?" Marcus slammed his fist on the steering wheel. "Are you crazy? I'm the CEO." He jumped out of the car and started calling the leasing department. "Mr. Thorne?" The manager's cold voice sounded like a verdict. "The lease agreement has been terminated by the company owner, Ms. Hawthorne. We have been instructed to impound the vehicle. A tow truck is already on the way. Please vacate the cabin and surrender the keys." Marcus stood in the middle of the gas station, feeling the ground disappear beneath his feet. Drivers behind him were honking impatiently. He had been thrown out of his own life with a single phone call. "Go to hell!" he yelled, throwing his phone onto the seat. "I'll walk, but I'll destroy all of you." He grabbed his briefcase from the passenger seat and ran out of the car. The tow truck was indeed turning into the gas station. Marcus walked along the shoulder, swallowing dust. One thought hammered in his head. Money. He needed money to hire lawyers, bribe a judge, and regain control. His gaze fell on his wrist, his Swiss watch, a gift from trusted partners for his 35th birthday. He had always been proud of it, telling everyone it was worth the price of a small house. "A pawn shop," he whispered. "That's it." An hour later, sweaty and furious, he walked into an upscale pawn shop downtown. "I need to sell this." He carelessly tossed the watch onto the velvet cushion in front of the appraiser. "I need $1 million urgently. We'll settle the rest later." The appraiser, an older man with a jeweler's loop in his eye, took the watch. He examined it closely, looking at the mechanism, then removed the loop and looked at Marcus with pity. "Young man, I don't accept replicas, even good quality ones." "Are you blind?" Marcus flared up. "It's genuine. Serious people gave it to me." "Your serious people cut corners," the appraiser smirked. "Chinese mechanism. The case is gold-plated, not gold. It's worth maybe $50 at a flea market." Marcus snatched the watch back. His hands were shaking. The people he considered friends and partners, the ones he tried so hard to impress, had simply played him. For 5 years he wore a cheap knockoff and boasted about it. He bolted out into the street. He had to call one of them. They had to help. He had done so much for them. He started scrolling through his contacts. Boris Peterson, owner of the construction firm. "Boria, buddy, it's Marcus. Listen, I have a situation here. Temporary trouble. I need to choke off my wife's funding." "Marcus." Boris Peterson's voice was dry. "Sorry, I'm busy, and don't call me again. We work with Fletcher Beloit now. You know who the real money man is. We don't need your problems." Dial tone. Next. Arcadius, the councilman. "RC, help me out!" Subscriber temporarily unavailable. Another one. Another nobody. Everyone turned away. They all knew Marcus was just a facade, and that facade had crumbled. He was king for an hour, and that hour was over. Despair crashed over him in a black wave. He had nothing. No car, no money, no connections, no friends. Even his watch was a fake. Chloe was waiting for money. If he showed up empty-handed, she would kick him out too. Then he remembered. The cabin. The old Thorne family cabin, which he hated but hadn't sold only because his mother begged him to keep the ancestral home. There, in the corner, hung antique icons, Grandma's icons in silver settings. His mother claimed they were miraculous and worth a fortune. "The icons," Marcus hissed. "I'll sell the icons to a black market collector. That'll be enough for a start." He flagged down a passing car, promising the driver he would transfer the money once he got to the internet. The cabin greeted him with silence and the smell of decaying leaves. Marcus didn't bother looking for the keys. He simply kicked in the flimsy porch door. Inside, it smelled of dampness and old wood. He rushed into the living room. There they were, 3 icons in the corner, gleaming dully in the gloom. Saint Nicholas, the Mother of God, and the Savior. The settings looked heavy, ancient. Marcus grabbed a chair, pushed it up to the shelf, and with trembling hands, lifted the center icon. "Forgive me, saints," he nervously chuckled, "but business is business." He flipped the icon over to check the artist's mark and froze. On the back of the board, written in black marker, was Reproduction 2018 Sofino Art Workshop. He grabbed the second one. Reproduction, the third, the same thing. "What?" he yelled, throwing the icon onto the floor. "Where are they? Where is the silver?" The frame cracked, and a cheap paper lithograph glued to plywood fell out. "Looking for the originals, Mr. Thorne?" The voice came from the doorway. Marcus spun around violently. Mr. James stood there in his usual chauffeur's jacket, hands in his pockets. He looked at Marcus not as a former boss, but as a misbehaving cat. "You!" Marcus shrieked. "You stole them, you old thief! Where are the icons?" "I didn't steal them. I saved them," the driver replied calmly, stepping into the room. 5 years ago, when you first put your mother's condo up for collateral, I knew what kind of person you were, a person who would sell everything. So I replaced the originals with copies. The real icons are in a safe deposit box in Serena's name." Marcus clenched his fists. Rage blinded him. This old man, this silent servant, had been smarter than him all along. You were always against me," Marcus hissed, moving toward the driver. "I knew it. I felt it. You were spying on me." "I was just watching," Mr. James shrugged. "And listening." He pulled out his phone. "Would you like to hear what I heard?" Mr. James pressed the screen. Marcus's voice played from the speaker. The recording was clearly made in the car, likely on the dash cam Marcus had forgotten about. Yeah, Chloe, just be patient a little longer. As soon as I get full control, I'll clean house. I'll throw that gray mouse in a mental institution. And the old fart, that driver, I'll fire him first thing. Or no, better yet, I'll set him up, frame him for stealing spare parts, and let him rot in jail. He knows too much. Chloe's recorded voice giggled. You're so cruel, kitten. I'm pragmatic, Marcus's recorded voice replied. In this world, only predators survive, and that old man is used up material, just like my dear wife. The recording cut off. Marcus stood, breathing heavily. He was caught by his own words, caught at the scene of the crime, caught in his own lies. You wanted to put me in jail? Mr. James asked softly. For a theft I didn't commit. And now you're standing here in someone else's property with a smashed icon at your feet. That's breaking and entering, Mr. Thorne. Section 139 of the Penal Code and attempted theft of cultural artifacts. Marcus looked around. The window was cracked. The door was kicked in. He was trapped. Mr. James? Marcus's voice suddenly became ingratiating, pathetic. Why do we need the police? We're family. I spoke in anger. Let's make a deal. I'll pay you. Later, when I get the money back. The driver shook his head. There was so much contempt in his eyes that Marcus felt physical pain. You still don't get it. Money doesn't decide anything here anymore. I called the squad 10 minutes ago. Hear that? In the distance, an actual siren wailed on the highway. Marcus dashed toward the window, but Mr. James blocked his path. The older man was surprisingly strong. He simply held out his arm, and Marcus, running into it, bounced off and hit the wall. Sit tight, the driver ordered. Wait, it's time to answer for your words. The police officers entered the house, and within a minute, Marcus was lying face down on the floor, feeling the cold of handcuffs on his wrists. He was led out under escort, like a common thief, and shoved into the patrol car. The humiliation was absolute. All the way to the precinct, he was silent, thinking feverishly. In the holding cell, it smelled of sweat and despair. Marcus sat on the bench, clutching his phone. He was allowed one call to his lawyer, but he didn't call a lawyer. He had one last card to play. An old debt from the district attorney, whom Marcus had once helped cover up a DUI case involving his son. Sergio, it's Thorne. I'm in lockup. Get me out. You owe me. 2 hours later, he was released on his own recognizance. Free, Marcus inhaled the city's polluted air. He was angrier than ever. Serena thought she had won. She took his company, his money, his car, but he still had his reputation, and he would destroy her so thoroughly that she would hand him the office keys just to make him stop. He hailed a cab and drove to his mother's condo. Patricia Thorne was sitting in her living room among boxes, tear-stained and bewildered. Seeing her son, she threw herself into his arms. Marcus, darling, you came! You fixed everything! We're staying! Marcus pushed her away, holding her tightly by the shoulders. Listen to me carefully, Mom. We don't have time for tears. We're going to the bank. What? What bank? She didn't understand. We're going to destroy Serena publicly. Marcus's eyes held a fanatical gleam. I've already contacted the reporters. There's a press conference at the City News Center in an hour. You're going to go out there and say Serena is a monster. A monster? Patricia blinked. Yes. You'll say she abused me for 10 years, that she's mentally unstable, that she hit you, that she forced us to sign the company over to her under threat of violence. But Marcus, that's a lie. She wouldn't hurt a fly. And the company? There are documents. To hell with the documents, Marcus yelled, shaking his mother. Public opinion is what matters. If we raise a stink, if people believe she's a tyrant, we can challenge all the deals in court. We'll say I was suffering from duress, under hypnosis, whatever. He thrust a sheet of paper, covered in his handwriting, into her hands. Here's the script. Memorize it. You need to cry right now. You need to look pathetic. You're a poor, miserable mother being thrown out on the street by a cruel daughter-in-law. Got it? Patricia's eyes scanned the lines. She starved us. She threatened to kill Marcus. She's a cult member. Marcus? This is too much, she whispered. It won't be exposed. He cut her off. Either you do this, or you sleep in a shelter tomorrow. Choose. Patricia swallowed hard. The fear of being homeless outweighed the fear of lying. She nodded. An hour later, dozens of journalists sat in the conference room. The Thorne family scandal was the main topic of the week, and everyone craved details. Cameras were pointed at the table where Marcus and Patricia Thorne were sitting. Marcus looked perfectly miserable. He wore an old sweater, the only thing he could find at his mother's, and ran his hands through his hair. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began in a soft, trembling voice. "I was silent for 10 years. I endured it. But yesterday's events were the last straw. My wife, Serena Thorne, seized my business in a hostile takeover. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is what she's doing to my family." He paused, dramatically wiping away a non-existent tear. "I asked my mother, Patricia, to tell the truth. Mom, don't be afraid. They hear us now." In her office, Serena watched the live broadcast on a large screen. Mr. James stood beside her. "Should I turn the sound off?" he asked, seeing how white Serena's knuckles were. "No," she said firmly. "I want to see how low they can sink." On the screen, Patricia Thorne pulled the microphone toward her. She looked miserable, trembling hands, shifty eyes. Marcus placed his palm on her hand, squeezing it. To the cameras, it looked like support, but Serena knew he was hurting her, forcing her to speak. Patricia began. "I want to make a statement." Marcus gave her an encouraging nod, but the threat was clear in his eyes. "Go on, you old fool. Read the script." Patricia looked at her son. Something clicked in her head at that moment. She remembered how he had screamed at her an hour ago, how he had forced her to take that loan that cost her the condo, how he had always used her. She turned her gaze to the camera. Live broadcast. The whole city is watching. Serena is watching. If she lied now, Serena would destroy her, throw her out without mercy. And Marcus? If he won, he would become king again. And then what? Would he remember his mother, or would he use her and discard her again, just like he used Serena? She saw the same cold calculation in her son's eyes that she saw when he slid the mortgage documents in front of her. He wouldn't save her. He would drown her along with himself if necessary. "Mom, speak!" Marcus hissed through clenched teeth, squeezing her wrist harder. Patricia jerked her hand free. "My son is lying!" she announced loudly and clearly into the microphone. Silence fell over the room. Marcus froze, his mouth hanging open. "What?" he hissed. "Are you crazy? Read the script." "No!" Patricia slammed her hand down on the table. "I will not read that garbage." She turned to the cameras, and now her voice was hysterical. But it was the sincere hysteria of a cornered animal who decided to bite. "He forced me to come here. He wrote this script." She crumpled the paper and threw it in Marcus's face. "He wanted me to lie about Serena, but Serena is not at fault for anything." The journalists leapt to their feet, flashbulbs popping. This was a sensation. "Mom, shut up!" Marcus roared, trying to cover her mouth with his hand. "She has dementia! Don't listen to her!" Patricia dug her nails into his arm. "I do not have dementia. People, listen, he's to blame for everything. He stole money from his wife. He forced me to put up my condo as collateral." "That's not true!" Marcus shrieked. "You signed the documents yourself." "I did not sign them," Patricia blurted out. And this was her trump card. "You brought me papers when I was sick and couldn't see well. You said it was insurance, but the signature on the loan agreement—" "I saw it later. It's not my signature. You forged it. You forged your own mother's signature to get the money." The room erupted in noise. Marcus recoiled from his mother as if she were a leper. He looked at her in horror. She had just accused him, on live television, of a felony, grand larceny by fraud. What are you doing?" he whispered. "You're sending me to jail." Patricia looked at him with hatred mixed with triumph. "Better you go to jail than I end up on the street," she whispered, so only he could hear. "Serena is kind. If I help her put you away, she might let me keep the condo. And you? You are nobody to me. You sold me out, son." She turned back to the microphone. "Serena," she yelled at the camera, "if you hear me, I'm ready to testify. I'll tell you about all his scams, all the offshore accounts, how he sold your jewelry. Just don't throw me out." In the office, Serena slowly exhaled. She hadn't expected this turn. The spiders in the jar were starting to eat each other. "Well, I'll be," Mr. James whistled. "The mother sold out the son to save her own skin." "She's not saving her skin," Serena said quietly. "She just chose the stronger owner. She realized Marcus lost and switched sides." Serena pressed the button on the remote, muting the sound. On the screen, Marcus silently screamed, surrounded by journalists, while Patricia sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "Mr. James," Serena said, "call the lawyers. Have them contact Patricia Thorne. If she's really willing to testify about the forged signature, we can annul the condo's lien." "You want to give her back her home?" the driver asked, surprised. "I want to return the condo to the company's balance sheet," Serena corrected him sharply. "And let Patricia live there for now, as a tenant at will. That will be her punishment, living there and knowing I can evict her at any second. Let her thank me every day for the roof over her head. For her ego, that's worse than prison. And Marcus?" Serena looked at the dark screen. Marcus couldn't talk his way out of this now. His mother's testimony was the final nail in the coffin. At that moment, Mr. James's phone rang. It was the head of security. "Serena," the driver handed her the phone. "They say Marcus ran away from the press center through the back door. The journalist almost tore him apart." "Where would he go?" Serena asked. "He has nowhere left to go," Mr. James replied. "No condo, no car, no money. His mother betrayed him. There's only one place left where he might try to grab one last thing." Serena understood. The community center. The annual concert was tonight. He would go there. He would try to stage one last spectacle. She stood up. "Let's go. We should meet him properly." Marcus ran through the city's back alleys, pulling his hoodie low over his eyes. He felt like a hunted wolf. His phone was ringing off the hook with calls from reporters, but he threw it into a garbage can. He needed a place to catch his breath. Chloe's apartment. He reached her building at dusk. The key worked, and Marcus stumbled into the hallway, breathing heavily. "Chloe," he called out. "Chloe, pack your things. We're leaving." Silence. Marcus walked into the bedroom. Empty. The closets were open. Hangers lay on the floor. Chloe's things were gone. He rushed to the dresser, where he kept a stash of money in the bottom drawer under his socks. A packet of $100 bills he managed to pull from the safe before he was kicked out of the office. It was his last money, his ticket to a new life. The drawer was empty. At the bottom was a note, written in lipstick on a torn sheet from a notepad. "Marcus, you're a loser. I'm not raising a baby for a penniless felon. I took the money as compensation for wasted time. Goodbye." Marcus roared. The sound that tore from his throat was like the howl of a wounded animal. She had robbed him. That girl, the one he showered with gifts. "It's over," he whispered, slumping to the floor. "Everyone betrayed me. Mom, wife, mistress." Only one thought remained in his inflamed brain. One goal. Serena. This was her fault. She was pulling the strings. She turned everyone against him. He had to look her in the eye. He had to force her to give everything back. He knew where she was. The big concert was tonight at the community center. She wouldn't miss it. She loved those sniveling kids too much. Marcus jumped up. There was no fear in his eyes anymore. Only madness. The atmosphere in the community center auditorium was solemn. The children's choir, dressed in white shirts, stood on the stage. Serena, in a severe black dress, stood with her back to the audience, holding her conductor's baton aloft. She was focused. Music healed her soul, helping her forget the grime of the last few days. The children began to sing. Pure, clear voices filled the space. Parents in the audience smiled. Some secretly wiped away tears. Suddenly, the doors at the back of the hall burst open with a crash. The music didn't stop immediately, but the heads of the audience began to turn. Marcus stood in the aisle. He looked awful, dirty, disheveled, with a frantic look in his eyes. "Bravo!" he yelled, clapping his hands. "Bravo, Saint Serena!" Serena lowered the baton. The choir fell silent. The children looked around fearfully. Marcus walked down the center aisle, staggering. "Look at her!" he screamed, pointing at the stage. "Standing there, conducting. But do you know who she really is? She's a thief! She stole my life!" He reached the middle of the hall. "Give me back my company!" he shrieked. "Give me back my money! You're a music teacher. Your place is in this dump, not in the CEO's chair." Serena slowly turned to him. She stood on the slight elevation of the stage and looked down at her husband. There was no fear in her gaze, only boundless weariness and pity. "Marcus, leave," she said softly into the microphone. "Don't frighten the children." "I won't leave!" Marcus lunged toward the stage, intending to climb the steps. "I'll throw you out of here. I'll make you sign." But he didn't take another step. A large man, the father of one of the choir singers, a factory worker, rose from the front row. He stood silently in the aisle, blocking Marcus's path. "Listen, buddy," he said in a deep voice. "You need to get out of here. Serena asked you not to disrupt us." Another man stood up behind him, and then another. Women began standing too, shielding the children seated in the hall. "Get out!" yelled a grandmother from the balcony. "Don't you dare touch our Serena!" "Shame!" others chimed in. "Drunkard! Brawler!" Marcus stopped. He looked around. A wall of people surrounded him, ordinary people in inexpensive clothes whom he had always despised, calling them the masses. But now these masses looked at him with such strength and contempt that he felt terrified. He was alone, completely alone, against an entire auditorium, against a community that loved and respected Serena for her work, for her kindness, not for her father's money. You don't understand," Marcus muttered, taking a step back. "She tricked me." "You tricked everyone," the worker said, taking a step forward. "We watched the news. You set up your mother, you poisoned your wife. Get lost before we call the cops, or before we rough you up ourselves." Marcus looked desperately at the stage. "Serena," he pleaded, hysterical notes creeping into his voice. "Tell them! I'm your husband! I'm the owner! I demand to speak to the owner!" Serena placed the baton on the music stand. She walked down the steps of the stage. People parted before her, forming a corridor. She walked toward Marcus calmly, her back straight. She stopped 2 steps away from him. "You wanted to speak to the owner?" she asked. "I'm here." Marcus lunged for her, but the worker placed a heavy hand on his shoulder, holding him in place. "Serena," Marcus whispered. "Serena, let's make a deal. This is crazy. Give me back at least some of it. Half. I'll leave. I'll disappear. Please, Serena." Serena silently extended her hand. Mr. James, appearing as if from nowhere, placed a thin blue folder in her palm. "I won't make a deal with you, Marcus," Serena said. "Negotiation is inappropriate here. You only have 2 options." She opened the folder. "Option 1, prison. My lawyers and auditors have completed their review. Grand larceny, forgery of signatures, mortgage fraud, fake medical treatment. That's about 15 years, Marcus. Federal prison. Your mother has already given a statement. Dr. Markova is also filing a plea of guilty. As for Chloe, you know where she is." Marcus turned so pale he looked dead. His knees buckled. 15 years, he whispered. "Serena, don't. Please, I'll give everything back. I'll work for it." "You can't give anything back. You have nothing left," she answered coldly. "But work for it? That's option 2. She took a document from the folder and held it out to him. "What is this?" Marcus took the paper with trembling hands. "An employment contract," Serena explained, "for the position of Junior Logistics Coordinator." Marcus quickly scanned the text. "Northern Hub?" He looked up at her, uncomprehending. That's That hole in Alaska. I created that branch myself to exile people who messed up. It's 40 below zero in the winter. It's barracks instead of an office. Exactly, Serena nodded. You called it a correctional facility for idiots. Now, it's your workplace. Me? Junior coordinator? Marcus choked with outrage. I'm a CEO. I'm not going to the tundra to sort invoices. You are going, Serena's voice was hard as steel, because it's the only alternative to prison. If you sign this contract now, I will withdraw the police report regarding the theft charges. I'm giving you a chance to remain free and honestly compensate the company for the damages. The salary will be minimal. Everything else will go toward paying down your debt. Marcus stared at the paper. This was hell, exile, humiliation. He, Marcus Thorne, would live in a barracks and take orders from some warehouse manager whom he himself had put there. And if I refuse? Serena nodded to Mr. James. He made a hand signal. 2 police officers appeared in the doorway of the hall. They didn't enter. They just stood and waited. They're waiting for my signal, Serena said. Either you sign right now and get on the train tomorrow morning, or they put the handcuffs on you immediately, and you go to federal lockup for a long time. Decide. Marcus looked at the police officers, then at the working-class people who surrounded him in a tight circle, then at Serena, who was no longer a gray mouse, but a rock against which his life had shattered. His hands trembled. His pride screamed, "No!" But the fear of a prison cell was stronger. He imagined 15 years behind bars and knew he was broken. "A pen," he hoarsely choked out. Mr. James handed him a cheap ballpoint pen. Marcus pressed the sheet against the folder Serena was holding and, grinding his teeth, signed his name. "That's everything," Serena said, taking the contract. "Your train is tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. The ticket is one-way, coach class. Don't be late." She turned to the audience. "The concert continues," she announced loudly. "Children, I apologize for the interruption." She walked onto the stage without even glancing back at her husband. Marcus stood there, clutching the copy of his sentence. People began to return to their seats, stepping distastefully around him as if he were a pile of garbage. He was crushed, destroyed. And the most terrifying thing was that he knew he had done it to himself. The police officers at the entrance turned and left. Mr. James walked over to Marcus. "Time to go, junior coordinator," he said. "You still have to pack, though you don't have much to pack." Marcus stumbled toward the exit to the sound of the orchestra starting up again. Behind him, the music, clean and bright, resumed, and there was no place in its score for him anymore. The doors closed behind Marcus, cutting him off from the light and warmth of the concert hall. He found himself in the cold autumn night, alone with his defeat. He had no choice but to head for the train station. 3 months flew by in a blur. The city changed. The sign on the main office building was replaced. Instead of the pompous Thorne Group, there was now a modest but stylish sign. The Beloit Cultural Foundation, in honor of Serena's mother's maiden name. The CEO's office no longer smelled of expensive cognac and cigars. Now, there were always fresh flowers, and the desk held plans for new music schools and grants for talented children, not schemes for kickbacks. Serena walked out of the Beaumont Center, but now she wasn't walking with her head down as she used to. She was beaming. In her hands, she clutched a folder with test results. A new, honest doctor she had hired after firing Dr. Markova had just confirmed that her body had fully recovered after stopping the harmful drugs. Her chances of a natural pregnancy were high. She inhaled the fresh, frosty air. Life was just beginning. At 36, she felt young. At the entrance, the familiar black sedan was waiting for her. Mr. James, who now officially held the position of head of security, but, by old habit, liked to drive Serena himself, opened the back door. "Good news, Serena?" he asked, noticing her smile. "The best, Mr. James," she replied, sitting down. "We're starting the protocol. The doctor said I'll most likely be pregnant by spring." "Thank God." The old man smiled genuinely, closing the door. The car smoothly pulled away. "By the way," Mr. James said, looking in the rearview mirror, "Patricia Thorne called. She asked me to pass on her thanks for paying her utility bill this month, and she asked if she could get a kitten. She's lonely in the studio apartment." Serena looked thoughtfully out the window. Patricia now lived in a tiny studio condo on the outskirts, which Serena had allocated to her from the company's old housing stock. No luxury, no servants, just a small pension and a stipend from the foundation that depended on her good behavior. And strangely enough, it had done her good. Stripped of the ability to plot and pretend to be a queen, Patricia had become a quiet, devout old woman who was afraid to disturb her daughter-in-law unnecessarily. "Let her get one," Serena nodded. "Animals make people kinder. Maybe her heart will finally soften for real, not out of fear." The car turned onto Central Avenue. The city was getting ready for Christmas. Storefronts glittered with string lights. "And how is our Arctic coordinator doing?" Serena asked, not naming him. She tried not to think about Marcus, but sometimes curiosity got the better of her. "Did he make it to Alaska?" Mr. James chuckled. "He didn't make it, Serena. He was fired even during the training phase at the logistics head office here in the city. It turns out he can't even sort invoices. He made too many mistakes, mixed up the cargo, started insulting the supervisors, screaming that he was the former owner. In short, they kicked him out with a bang 3 days after he signed the contract." "And where is he now?" Serena asked. "In jail?" "No, we withdrew the report, as agreed. He's free, but he has to eat." The car paused at a traffic light. "And with his employment record, a dismissal for professional incompetence, and his reputation, he can't get a decent job." "Look to your right, Serena," Mr. James said quietly. Serena turned her head. On the sidewalk, stooped over, stood a man in a bright orange municipal services vest. He was chipping ice with a heavy iron pole, clearing the curb. His face was gray, windburned, and unshaven. On his head was a knitted cap pulled low over his ears. It was Marcus, the former king of his life, who despised simple laborers, now one of the people he used to ignore. He paused to catch his breath and leaned on the pole. His gaze swept over the black sedan stopped at the light. He recognized the car. He recognized the license plate. Marcus froze. He peered into the tinted glass of the back window, trying to see the silhouette of the woman he had humiliated for 10 years. There was no anger in his eyes, only emptiness and an endless, gnawing sorrow for the lost paradise he had destroyed with his own hands. Serena watched him. She expected to feel malice, triumph, but she felt nothing, neither pity nor anger. He had become just a part of the landscape to her, like the dirty snow he was clearing, a past that had melted away. "Green light," Mr. James said. Serena turned away from the window. "Let's go, Mr. James. We have a lot to do. Rehearsal tonight." The driver pressed the gas. The car smoothly accelerated, leaving the hunched figure in the orange vest behind. Marcus watched the receding red taillights, then spat on the ground, gripped the heavy iron pole more tightly, and started chipping the ice again. Serena pulled out her phone and dialed her father's number. "Dad, hi. Yes, I'm heading home. No, I'm not alone. I always have someone with me now, hope and love. I'll come visit you at the farm this weekend. Wait for me." She smiled at her reflection in the dark glass. The music of her new life was just beginning, and there were no false notes in this score. Well, friends, that's the story. Honestly, I got chills myself while reading you this ending. What do you think? Did Serena act fairly? On the one hand, some might say she was too cruel, sending her husband to the street, forcing her mother-in-law to live in poverty. She could have simply divorced him and let them go in peace, given them money for a fresh start. After all, they lived together for 10 years, Christian mercy and all that. But on the other hand, did Marcus deserve mercy? A man who poisoned his wife with pills so she couldn't have children, all for money. A man who forged his own mother's signature and was ready to send her to jail. It seems to me that a pole and ice are still a very gentle punishment for him. Life itself set things right. He received exactly what he put out into the world, coldness and indifference. And Patricia betrayed her son to save her roof. Spiders in a jar, as Serena said. But perhaps living a quiet, humble life like this is what will save her soul. I'm very interested to hear your opinion. Did Serena do the right thing by not sending Marcus to jail and giving him a chance to work with his hands, or should she have pressed charges to the end? Write in the comments how you would have acted in her place. Would you have forgiven or taken harsher revenge? If the story captivated you, if you worried about Serena as much as I did, please give this video a like. It really helps our channel grow and tell you new stories. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. We have many more life dramas in reserve that will take your breath away. Do you want to know how Serena's life turned out? Did she have a child? Did she find true love? If you want a continuation, write, "I want part 2" in the comments. If we get enough requests, I will definitely read you the second part. All the best. In the middle of the screen at the end of this video, a window will appear. Please click on that window. Our other most interesting stories will be there.